This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Grumpy Coffee, a specialty coffee, an absolutely beautiful blend. We've got very grumpy, we've got everyday. Go to grumpycoffee.com.au. Check it out. Not only do we have the beans, we've also got pods. Check it out at grumpycoffee.com.au.
Just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to an episode of Bloke in a Bar. I'm here with the big fella, Shaun Lane. How you going, brother?
Good, mate. How are you?
Very, very good, thanks, bro. It's, mate, the last time we talked was like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, we were just talking before that you had the you'd have the poster up in your apartment, and I can remember you were setting up the podcast as we were kind of chatting beforehand.
Yep.
Yeah, you had to like roll in your own table and stuff like that, right? Yeah, because it was in your living room.
Yep.
That was pretty funny, but. Yeah, I can remember speaking to you at that time about like what your plans were and what your vision was and stuff. And you're saying how you wanted to utilize your podcast to help fund a bar and then eventually your own beer and stuff. And that was kind of like, oh, hopefully one day. Within a space of like a year or two, all of that was being accomplished. And then you've just gone from one strength to another since then, mate.
Thanks, bro. No, bro. It's been insane. Like so lucky that the thing I was the most lucky about was I was one of the first podcasts. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't like if I just came in now, like it would be nowhere near as big.
Too saturated the market,
yeah,
right?
So it's not like I had some special talent or like crazy insight. It genuinely just because I was first, which is thank you, God.
No, it was good though that like part of being business minded and being successful is identifying when there's like a gap in the market, right? And
thanks, bro.
Kind of took the podcast and turned it into a rugby league thing, and now there's hundreds of them.
Bazillion of them.
We're talking about, but you're the granddaddy of the.
It's funny because like now I have to like if I want to get a guest on, I've got to be like, okay, have they been on a podcast recently? You know, like is their story being told recently? Would have people listened to it already? Because like don't get me wrong, like I personally will listen to multiple podcasts with someone because sometimes there's different parts of their life that they'll talk about. But a lot of people go, oh, I listened to such and such on X podcast, and then they see a new one up in a couple of weeks. They're like,
don't listen to it.
Yeah, they don't listen to it. So whereas back in the day, it was just me. I didn't have to worry about no one. I was just like, whatever guest comes on.
Mate.
Free reign, bro. Free reign. But it's good though. It's really good because it's what I like about it is that I love seeing all the especially ex-footy players like just go into something after footy that keeps them engaged with it. But also like as well for the audience, like, there's plenty of people out there that probably don't like the way I interview people and they love the way other people do, which is great. They get better content,
Yeah, more individualized content, different personalities and stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Like there has always been an issue for footy players too, like transitioning after football, like you said. Like I'm sure you probably know heaps of blokes that have struggled. And I guess it provides an avenue for people to get involved in that way. And there's plenty of blokes that can tell some cracker stories, right? That will end up being able to get into this kind of line of work. But if they didn't have this, where else can you talk shit for a living, really, right?
100%.
So it's been good to see. And like
Thanks,
you said, it's beneficial.
Mate, but this is about you, bro. This is about you. How's the body feeling? So no surgeries needed other than obviously post-career ones potentially?
Yeah. I was talking to you. I think you haven't had a good career if you don't need surgeries post-career nowadays. But luckily that's kind of covered in our CBA and stuff. So I'll worry about that when the career's over.
I'm the idiot that I was covered when I quit to get my nose done.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it.
Yeah,
and so I just the whole time
regrets ever since.
Absolutely, I should have just done it. Like so dumb.
Is it breathing through?
Yeah, one side I can't really breathe.
Yeah,
that
I'm
well
the same. Mine's to one side, so I'll get that done eventually.
Make sure you do, bro. Trust me.
Yeah,
Fuck, I wish I didn't.
My roomie had his done. I used to live with Andrew Davey, who was a player for Parramatta as well. He had his done. He had his neck done and stuff. I'll get all that done. But yeah, the recent season, no injuries. Thankfully, after the previous year where I just had non-stop injuries the whole way through, and it just kind of disrupted a big portion of my career.
Yeah. So I guess this year for you, obviously, for Para wasn't the best year. Like for yourself, how did you find the year and how did you kind of, reflecting on the year, what would you kind of say about it?
Fuck, it was a battle, man. It was like we've kind of been spoilt with success over the last 5 years before that. We're always kind of top four or thereabouts and making it to the finals, to the second week of finals. We made the GF in 2022. But yeah, it was after a year where the club didn't go as well, we missed the finals in 2023. It kind of adds that little bit of added pressure. There's that expectation on us to perform after making the GF in 22. And then everything started to kind of just collapse on us. And I would always kind of talk to blokes in more losing predicaments than I was in, and everyone says like, man, it's the worst when you're in a losing team. And that's the truth. I can tell you now. It's just the mood around the place. Like, obviously you don't want to have your happiness contingent on the result of a game, but at the end of the day, everyone's a very passionate professional in the game, and football does mean a lot to a lot of people. Means a lot to the community and the fan base, and then that kind of that stress and that worry that is present in the community about the performance of the team, that kind of overlaps into the facility and I guess the staff and everything as well, how they're operating. And I think particularly Parramatta, like there's such a desire for that success, right? Because we are like a heavyweight of the competition in terms of the resources we have available, but success has eluded us for such a long period of time now, and I guess everyone's just kind of over it.
Yeah, mate, isn't it such a fine balance? Because, I know, all the studies would suggest, and, these people try to tell you, your wins aren't as big as your loss, your wins aren't that big and your losses aren't that bad. And so don't be so connected to the wins and losses. But as a player, you just are. It's very hard to, and sometimes I wonder, like, I know that they tell you not to care that, like, they not to not care, but they're like, oh, don't let it affect you. It's like, it does though. It really does. And no matter how many, breathing exercises or books I read, I'm still going to be affected by this loss. It's such a hard thing.
Well, I think there's an understanding that, like, right, this is a big part of everyone's life, and they have grown up loving this idea of being a football player, and then they achieve their dreams, and it's like, it is high stakes environment because of that fact. Like, it's such a big part of everyone's identity and everyone's life. So telling people like not to worry about it, there's a clear understanding they are going to worry about it. It's about like, let's not provoke that thought any further. Let's try and like address it and challenge it a bit. So that it at least gets people more towards a healthy baseline. But at the end of the day, you're in an industry that's just driven by passion, and it's always going to be a passionate place where emotions run wild, and that's rugby league. That's why so many people love it. But that's what it is.
It's crazy. It's and don't get me wrong. I think as you get older, you get a little bit better at handling the emotion of a loss. And so you still feel as deeply as, let's just say, the 20-year-old, but you're more understanding of like, this actually doesn't help me next week. Like me being this rattled and not focused and head down actually affects my preparation for the next week after that.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell someone that as well when they're a young kid. Maybe they've had experiences where negativity has motivated them more. Maybe they're like just so emotional because they are achieving their dream, right? They might only be 10 games in their career. So it's naturally going to be such an emotional thing for them. And I think you kind of get to that point where you may be 50 towards 100 games in, and everything kind of just becomes more normal for you. And the highs of running out in front of a 20,000 person crowd or however many people you have out there, you don't experience the same high as what you did when you were younger. And then it's the same for the losses. You kind of get used to it. You get conditioned to it, right? And then so the losses aren't as low. So then the longer you go throughout your career, it's just kind of like an everyday job for you, which is weird. For some people to hear when I tell them that, it's just kind of work for me now. And there's not really that excitement or, I guess, the negative emotions that come with the bad things that happen for me. It's just kind of like,
it's almost like what it is. When doctors go, I had like open heart surgery today, and you're gone. Like to you, it would be like, oh my God, like life's in your hand. And to they're just like, no, it's just a job. Like I don't actually. Whereas, could you imagine if tomorrow someone said someone's life's in your hand? You'd be like,
it would be any job, man. It's just like it's part of being human. Like you just get used to it. It's the hedonic adaptation, they call it.
Oh, really?
Hedonic,
Okay.
yeah, well, it's kind of why as well you get used to things. They start to become boring,
Yep.
and that makes you want to go out and start doing new things.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
That's the hedonic. What the
hedonic adaptation.
The hedonic adaptation. Where'd you learn? Did you read that, or did you?
I study psychology. So
Far out. How far in are you into that degree?
Well, I've done a degree in health science. I did a diploma in psychology, and I'm now doing a master's in positive psychology. So
Here I am thinking I'm just having a fucking normal chat with a normal bloke. This guy's a bloody...
I'm a normal bloke. We're all studying psychology, will tell you that.
I'm throwing out all this stuff, and this guy's actually knows like a full-on degree. Holy heckers, mate. That's fucking so impressive, mate. Walk us through how, like, what got you so interested in such a... Like, that? It's just so interesting that we went down that route so quickly, you know?
Yeah. I can't help but, because I do have the knowledge and understanding of these things, someone mentions it, I'm just like, it clicks in my mind instantly now.
Yeah, I'm going, Laney's a genius. Holy heckers.
I studied health science ever since straight out of high school.
Yep.
In the junior leagues, you kind of need to study something they make you, which is good.
Yeah.
And it teaches you to have something outside of footy and try and build that foundation of something else, just in case footy doesn't work out. So I did that. Wanted to be a physio, but around footy, you know, like everyone pizzles the physio.
Oh yeah, it's the best and worst.
Yeah,
because everyone actually does deep down love you. But that love is usually shown in pizzling you.
yeah. And like I was at some places where like the physio would just kind of get bossed around by the coach and stuff, and I'm like, you know what? Being a physio, I don't know if a bit of a glorified massage therapist in a way in the footy around football anyway. And so I was like, you know what, maybe I'll do something else.
Now your physio is going to be like, how dare you, Laney? I've got you on the field. I got you on the field so many times.
They know it's true, mate. They know it's true. But yeah, I kind of got interested in psychology a few years later. I started to read some books. It's actually around relationships and stuff. And I started to realize that like the things I'm reading about how relationships operate, how people kind of operate in those regards, it applies to so many different ways, and just really interested me because it kind of applied to me in a personal way. So I got interested in that, started looking into it more and more, and then realized, I want to kind of go down that route. And then, really haven't looked back in terms of studying, and I've just kind of ticked it off and found that was what I really am driven to do. So it's helped me in like my performance on the field, helped me kind of with the trajectory of where I want to go eventually when I'm done retiring, when I'm done playing. Love it.
Wow. So you do your, where did you get into, so you did your psychology and then to do your master's in positive psychology. So that's very specific. How did you decide to go into getting your master's in that specifically?
So as well, like one of the factors that motivated me to getting into to psychology in general was, my whole life, my dad has had mental illness.
Okay.
So that also makes it apply like very personally to me and my story. So that was another route of like why it mattered so much to me to study psychology in general. But the more I had a broader understanding of psychology, it was like dealing with mental illness and problems and stuff like that. That model didn't seem to fit me well. Like I just don't like the idea of like, let's address an issue when someone's at a breaking point.
Yeah, okay.
It's
almost like prehab and rehab.
Yeah, exactly right. Like it's a proactive model, or they call it a deficit model, which is how a lot of medicine actually operates as well. And psychology kind of developed that. Just so like medicine operates, right? You deal with diabetes through medication rather than like someone actually fixing their diet and addressing their health in that way beforehand, before it gets to the point of diabetes.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of medicine just deals with the issue as it arises.
Yeah, and we've almost used it as a crutch as a society rather than the other way around.
Yeah. People just kind of, like people just let things happen, and then eventually it gets to the point where they're broken and they're trying to fix themselves through medication. It's just like, you know what, that just kind of seems broken, that whole model to me.
Yeah.
On top of that, like clinical psychologists who work with mental illness and stuff, like God bless them. Like everyone needs like that in their community, and we need clinical psychologists in the world to help those people that are struggling. But like there's such a rate of burnout, and they have their own problems as well, clinical psychs, because they're just constantly dealing with like the worst issues that humans can go through.
As a human,
Yeah. And like being around my dad for my whole life, he has like bad depression. I understood just how draining it is to constantly have to deal with the issues associated with mental illness. So I was just like, I couldn't do that for a job. As driven as I am to try and help people in different ways, I just couldn't do that. I discovered positive psychology, which is like the reverse model of what I've kind of just been describing. It deals with proactively addressing psychology and psychological, I guess, thinking patterns and behaviors and stuff like that in a positive way that gets people from like a normal person to thriving, becoming the best version of themselves. So it's all about performance too. And then that's just a natural path that helps my footy, helps my life outside of footy. It's also not something that's very common, especially around sports, which it could be very beneficial in. So I was just like, you know what, that's the route that I want to go down, and I eventually want to move into like a performance psychology role outside of footy when I'm done.
Yeah, psychology is just like, it's so interesting because, well, it's not the main reason, but for me, what I find so fascinating about it is that, like, if you do your hammy or whatever, or something physical happens to you, we are pretty good at understanding of like, okay, what's the rehab process? What's the prehab that we could do? What's the ways that we can protect ourselves from that happening? Whereas I think what's so interesting is like with psychology, because you can't see it, it's not a physical thing.
Yeah.
We actually still don't really know that much about the brain and how it all works when you actually. I find that fascinating. I really do find that fascinating.
Yeah. It's it's definitely interesting. It's there's still so much to learn about how humans think and behave and stuff. It's very interesting to me, I guess, because you're constantly discovering new things in that regard. Whereas I think the body kind of operates in a more predictable way.
Almost binary, not necessarily binary, but
more predictable way. Your muscle, we kind of understand the biology of it and how it can be fixed and the easiest ways to go about that. But the way that your psychology influences everything else that happens in your body too, I find that very interesting. Like it is like the software that your whole body runs off, and if you don't get it right, your biology can be messed up. You're more likely to experience injuries. All those types of things.
It's crazy, mate. I guess this season in regards to footy, I guess
this is a footy podcast.
I just totally forgot a footy podcast. I guess this year, what do you reckon on the field? Like we've spoken about, the impact of it and trying to keep up. I guess you've had so much success, and now there's been some couple poor years or not so great years. What about on the field? What do you reckon went wrong? You had some key injuries, but what do you reckon went wrong on the field?
Like you said, the injuries are first and foremost probably for us with Mitch is in his prime now, and then I think we've developed over the course of them years where we've been successful, we developed like a necessity to have Mitch there.
Yeah.
Like if he wasn't in our team, then we missed all direction. We missed someone just being able to put put a kick into the corner and then guide us around the park.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just, I think that was the main issue that we had, was all of our structures that were in place. Mitch was the one that really knew how to actually nail it all.
Yeah, okay.
And it was kind of curated around his strengths almost.
Yeah. And he'd been so injury free for so many years now that it's almost natural to rely on.
Yeah, exactly right. It was almost like, well, Mitch is going to be there.
Yeah, of course he is. Yeah,
because he was there for 5 years straight.
yeah.
So it's just like, nah, well, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And like, to be fair, like if you're thinking we're going to win a comp, which is everyone doesn't think how we're going to just make the 8. You're trying to think how we're going to win.
Yeah.
So you're trying to utilize all of your players' strengths as best you can, because you have to come up against teams Penrith and Melbourne and stuff like that, who are just coached outstandingly and have all these amazing players. So you got to think from the get-go, like, how are we going to win?
Yeah.
And obviously if you have Mitch in your team, you're just like, he's going to be a pivotal part of that. So it's I guess we relied too heavily on him. And that kind of was that undid all of our performances throughout the season because of it. I think as well, part of like the way that our team was structured is we kind of had our top maybe 8 to 10 players that took up the salary cap. And then the rest of the boys coming through were kind of like, they show promise and stuff, but they're not tried and proven NRL players, a lot of them.
They're not ready yet, but they
might not be ready. Yeah.
But they're going to, just like any rookie or fringe player, evenently they could be. It's just gonna take time.
So I think after a few successful seasons that we had, and we lost a bunch of good players that were kind of integral to our success at those points, we started to rely more heavily on like some of those younger boys coming through or less experienced players. And then when we experienced the injuries to some of our key players, we did have a lot last year. At some points we were missing like almost half our salary cap or something like that. Wow. Something insane. And it is very top heavy though. Like, we're just missing a bunch of our key players. But that's when you rely on those blokes that really they're not getting paid to do the job that is expected of them. Like, they're not getting paid that amount of money.
And also like they shouldn't be expected to, because they don't have the experience yet.
Exactly. And so we're going like, oh, like I hope you can. And like, we trust you, and we're empowering you to do that as much as we can. But like, that's when it's a full credit to systems like Penrith and Melbourne and stuff, when they've lost the players that they have for so many successive years in a row. And they're so frequently able to take those younger, less experienced players and then put them in those positions where they are so reliable still. It's crazy. You see it every year, man. Like, when you see the Penrith team that made the, 2020 grand final? Yeah, when they versed Melbourne. Look at that team compared to the one that won this year, and there's like Cleary and Yo and Edwards or something. And only
maybe,
3.
Maybe Martin, I think.
Right.
There's
Martin,
not many.
Toe. There's a few there. There's a few there. But compared to 17 players, like, there's a handful. So every other player outside of that plays a role at some point, and Penrith are able to develop them consistently around that core group of players.
I think as well, like, and don't get me wrong, I 100% agree. Like, Penrith's ability to continue to win, even though they lose quality players like Cleary or whatever, like that, it's incredible. They're also, I think over the last 5 years, they've had the least amount of long-term injuries as well. Again, I'm pleased, Penrith fans that are listening, I am not saying that they haven't been incredible. I'm just saying that whatever their strength and conditioning coach is doing to keep them fit like that is honestly incredible, like, amazing.
I think it's because since 2020 was like their first big year that they were really good. I think they lost to Melbourne that year. And they had like a record win of 17 in a row or something like that. Yeah, something crazy. But that team, that Penrith team, like, they were young. They're young. Like, that. It's just a fact that as you get older, you experience more injuries. And then the thing that increases your likelihood for a successive injury is a previous injury.
Yeah.
Like that increases it substantially. So you're dealing with kids that haven't been injured before. You expose them to obviously a good strength and conditioning program and all this type of stuff is going to help. But they've been very tactical in like the players that they develop, that they bring through. And it's one of the strengths of just that club is the catchment of local juniors that they had to be able to call upon and develop, that these players they're developing, they're not relying on developing a 26-year-old who may have already had an ACL injury or something and is at risk of another injury down the track. They're developing a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's never been injured before.
Yeah.
Has a really sturdy, robust body.
Yeah.
And it's just like those blokes don't get injured as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Their ability to, because like there are other teams with big catchments, but Penrith's ability to identify the right player from the catchment is fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, they seem to have nailed so many different processes, that like that are important for success. Like their salary cap management, like they let go of players that they see like, that's a great player, right?
Yeah.
But we need Cleary and Yo.
Yeah.
We need them. Like they're the most contingent on our success.
Funnily enough, they've like copied Melbourne Storm system to a degree where they just like in the spine, all the money's into it, and then around them will fit them in.
Yeah, exactly.
But mate, growing up, like we've spoken about, your, I guess your like keenness for knowledge and everything like that. But also, were you always into sport growing up, or were you someone that focused more on school?
No, I was always sport. Like when I would think what I wanted to do in the future, my hopes and dreams as a kid, it was always sport. And the number one thing that I wanted to do was always play rugby league. I think that was just because it was a big family affair. Everyone in my whole extended family, it was just kind of football obsessed, and we all played for the same team together, and lots of great memories around rugby league for me and my family. So yeah, that personal attachment to the sport was always big for me. I played other sports as well that I had lots of fun doing. I was pretty good at shot put, discus, javelin. I used to do little athletics a lot when I was young. So there was some times there where I really enjoyed that, and I thought like that could be one potential path, but I never really clicked with that as much. I never really was as attached to that as I was with footy. It's just kind of I think it's the element of connection and bonding and fun that you have in football that always kind of did it for me.
And who was your team growing up?
My favourite team?
Yeah.
I actually supported Cronulla Sharks.
Sharkies.
When I was a kid until maybe high school, and then I just didn't really care after that.
Yeah, just like whatever.
Yeah. It was. I can remember when I was really young, loved Preston Campbell. I was maybe like 7 years old because Preston Campbell played for Cronulla and got the Dally M medal one year, and that was like he was a freak for that time. And then as I got a little bit older, it was like Greg Bird and Paul Gallen were the ones playing for New South Wales and Australia that played for Cronulla. Eventually I ended up versing Paul Gallen, and I don't think I got to verse Greg Bird, but yeah, it gets to the point where you don't really care as much anymore as you get older. Yeah.
Okay, so growing up for you, were you always kind of, exceeding and excelling in league, or did it take a while? Were you just playing for fun for a period? What was it like?
When I was really young, I was always kind of the guy.
The guy. Yeah.
Yeah. But like,
there's that guy.
So yeah, I was always really good when I was, let's say, started playing at like 5 until I was 10. Maybe I was like one of the guys in the competition. Just because I was like bigger, bit more athletic than all the other kids. Then like you get to the age group where some boys become man children, right?
Yeah.
And then other boys don't really develop as much, and then there's just this clear disparity in like the development of different boys.
Yep.
So that starts to happen around like sometimes 12, 13.
Yeah.
And so I was a late bloomer. Like I didn't properly shoot up till I was probably 16.
Wow. That is like,
yeah.
You're looking like, what, year 10, 11?
I probably went through like 3-4 years of, I still look like a kid.
Yeah.
And wasn't big, wasn't athletic. All these other people just putting it over me easily because like they're actually developed into men at this point. And that was like quite discouraging at the time. I just wasn't good. I wouldn't get picked like, for rep teams and stuff like that. But I always had the understanding that, you know, my time will come and good things will happen. I kind of, funnily enough, because when I was a kid, I had things like, I had like whooping cough and croup and things. And I used to have to go to, is it a pediatrician deals with kids?
Oh,
pediatrician?
Mate. Yeah, you're the smart guy.
Yeah,
you're the smart guy
I think it's pediatrician. So I used to have to go to see them when I was younger, and that's when they perform like
pediatrician.
Pediatrician, yeah, I knew it. You have to do screenings and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I knew my parents knew I had like this book and everything, like of your growth chart.
Yeah, wow.
At different age groups. And I think it's like they say the age of 2 is a great indication of like your percentile in the population of where you're going to be able to reach in terms of height, probably weight as well. And on those charts has a nice flowing chart to it, very visual thing. And I'm just like all the way at the top, like 99th percentile in height.
No way.
And so I had this pediatricians telling my parents at age 2, your kid's going to be 6'7".
What?
Yeah.
At age 2?
At age 2, yeah, because they can like reliably predict this stuff.
Wow.
At age 2, yeah.
So are your parents really tall? Or?
No. So it was,
that would have been a mind blowing.
Because I was always a tall kid, a baby, like a long baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they kind of knew I was big. But then when that stuff kind of started to happen, we actually had all this data and stuff to support it and showcase to predict this is what's going to happen. So it was funny. Ever since I was a kid, as long as I can remember, my mum would be telling me, "You're going to be the biggest person around."
No way.
Basically.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is.
So I can remember I was telling my girlfriend this, and I'm like, having that like security in the back of my mind at all times, even when I was going through this period when I'm 13 to 16 and I wasn't tall and I wasn't big, I was looking around at all these kids and I'm going like, yeah, they're not 6'7".
Yeah.
Like, I'll be right.
Yeah. No way.
And so I had this security in the back of my mind. I was like, no, the doctors don't lie.
Yeah, of course.
It's going to happen like this. I knew I was always a big kid and I knew I'm going to be a big person.
Wow.
On top of that, I knew my brothers had these huge growth spurts when they were around 16.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh, I'll be fine. I'll have a massive growth spurt. And it was like, eventually my destiny was realized and like all of that stuff that was predicted to happen eventually happened and I became
extremely tall.
Yeah, extremely tall, like the doctors had told me I would.
No way.
And then from that point, that's where all of the success around my football started to happen. It took me a few years to
get used to your body,
build out into my body and be able to understand how to utilize it correctly and stuff. But then, I guess within a few years after that, that's when you play first grade. I debuted at 20 years old. So
wow.
Yeah.
That is like I've never heard a story before like that where someone's being told from a young age, you actually will be.
It sounds like a movie almost, like a prophecy, right? Like he will be
you will be the tall guy. You're the tall guy.
The chosen tall guy.
There should be like a comedy
I'm
around
saying to my mum, like, why didn't you get me into basketball?
Yeah.
If you knew I'm going to be 6'7", like I wouldn't mind making a few $1 million.
Yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean? And like not having all these pain and aches in my body.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So it's just such an interesting. I'm just trying to put myself in your position of growing up and having in the back of my head like I'm playing a sport here where I'm struggling to keep up with the physicality, but I know that I am going to be. It's so interesting.
It was like ultimate example of delayed gratification. Really, right?
Wow.
It was just like, just stick in it. And my mum would be reminding me of this stuff all the time.
No way.
I can remember I would have these notes written in like the garage where I would kind of like go and do cardio or boxing, or we had like a little weights thing that I'd go down every time, and I'd have these notes written down like your time will come, be patient, things like that, because it was just like, no, I know this is going to happen. I know it's going to happen.
Way. That is so interesting.
I think those notes might be written still somewhere at home. My mum might have kept them somewhere or something. It was funny.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Okay, so how did you go with because you shot up so quickly? Surely you would have had like back pain, in that in your body, or not really?
Yeah, I had pains in my, I think it was like feet and heels.
Yep.
When I was younger, and then I think as I got more towards like 16, that's when I was having my big growth spurts. I was having back issues, but it's very, very common at that age, like as people are growing. And I think the way that a physio explained it is everyone's bodies are getting so much bigger, but their bodies aren't, especially in football or contact sport, your bodies aren't adept at dealing with the increased physical contact and loading that you're kind of putting your body under. So I did have a few issues around my back and stuff, but nothing severe, no bulging discs or anything like that. So it just took me a while to figure out how to coordinate this long body of mine to understand like how to use it better. And that was the biggest thing.
And so did you make like, what rep size did you make it as a teenager?
So I went to Endeavour Sports High, which is in Caringbah, and I just played for like the local teams around there because I could just go there after school at that age. So then the junior rep team that I went to play for was actually Cronulla. And it was under 16s at the time was Harold Matthews. But I still hadn't had my growth spurt at that time. So I was, I was chubby, unathletic, no musculature. So I got cut from that. I made the squad and I got cut from that.
Yeah.
And then I think it was within the space of the next 12 months. I think I actually grew about a foot.
Wow.
In the next 12 months. Yeah. Jeez. It might have been. Like, my mum still has the growth like measurement chart that we have it in like a little laundry.
Yeah.
And she would measure me. It would be like every week or two, I'd be growing like a centimeter. Yeah, it'd be crazy. And she's dated it too. So you can go back and look. And there's sometimes where it's like 1 week and I've grown 2 centimeters. It's like, what the hell is happening here?
Were you eating a lot?
I always ate a lot.
Yeah, wow. But
yeah, it was really just going boom. I was just shooting up like crazily. I think the next year I kind of like, I think I made SG Ball, which is actually 2 years up. So I made it a year young, but I wasn't really playing and stuff. I was still unco and didn't know how to use my body, like I said. Then I made the SG Ball a year later. Under 20s again. Then I think first grade.
Yeah, okay.
After that,
so you make under 20s and under 20s again. At what point did first grade kind of knock on your door and say, here's a contract to train with us?
So it was my first year of under 20s was... we had a really good team at the Bulldogs. I think we come third or something. I played with players like Adam Elliott.
At the Doggies, obviously.
At the Doggies, yeah. Adam Elliott, Moses Mbai.
Why choose the Doggies?
Why did I choose the Doggies?
Yeah.
So my older brother actually played for the Bulldogs when I was in high school, and he was still there when I left high school.
As in 20s for the Doggies? Or
no, he played one first grade game.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, he played one first grade game, and they liked him there. They knew he had potential and stuff. There was always, he might have had the ability to keep progressing forward, but he only got the one game. But because they kind of knew him there, it got to a point where after my school footy was done, that's when you have to choose kind of what under 20s team you're going to go play for. And I wasn't really happy with the progress that Cronulla was taking for me, and the Bulldogs already had my brother there, and they were kind of actually showing interest, like they wanted to get me over. So I ended up going to the Bulldogs, and it was a great move for me. My career progressed enormously after that. I played first grade in 2 years' time.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, the first year of 20s played with a bunch of players like that. Then I think I started training with first grade a year later, the next season. And then I was into full-time contract the year after that. That's when I played. That's when I actually debuted.
And so do you remember the conversation in regards to like coming to train for first grade? Do you remember any of your first sessions and that? Because it's almost as big as a debut sometimes. You know, getting to that first grade squad and looking around going, oh my God.
I think because I would interact with them in the hallways and stuff like that, because my brother was training with them.
Yep.
I can remember it was like, it would have been just when I started playing under 20s, and I went out with my mates to Oatley Hotel.
Yeah.
And the Bulldogs had like their Christmas party there, the first grade Bulldogs. And I walked up and I'm saying hello to everyone. I'm like, oh, I'm playing under 20s for you guys. And then someone knew who I was. They knew it was my brother. They called my brother Laney.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's Laney's brother. Oh, it's Laney's brother. And I started like having a chat with them all and like being mates with them.
Yep.
And then so that was my first year of under 20s. I then go into training after that, and I'm like going up and chatting to all the first graders. So I just kind of like got to know them all.
Yep. What about the intensity? Was there any sessions where you're like, "Oh, this is different"?
I think luckily I guess you can call it luck, but my under 20s training and stuff was like really intense.
Yep.
They kind of utilized the training there for the under 20s program as like, we're going to test these kids and see if they actually have what it takes. And I was never really shying away from hard work. I understood that was going to be a part of it. I guess my brother was there to kind of guide me along the way, and he was there to educate me on what there was in store for me.
Yeah, okay.
And then I was experiencing it at 20s, and then, it was intense. The difference between like an under 20s training day and a first grade training day is huge in terms of just like the volume that you have to go through. And just remember being at the end of training days in first grade and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. Like I just want to sleep. And end of the week, you're like, I don't want to go out with my friends. I'm so done.
Yeah.
But the impression that I had on first grade training, I was with all of these gun players, Josh Morris, Brett Morris, Michael Ennis, Cassiano, and James Graham, and all these blokes that had played international football that were guns at the time, and the team had just played in the grand final the year before. And I went in and I'm like playing football against them and with them, and I'm like, they're not that much better than me. That's what I thought, honestly. I was like, it gave me confidence because it was like they were on this pedestal for a long time in my mind. But I'd actually progressed after all these years to like, I was at the level almost. So I was just like, it gave me confidence. I can remember I'd train with them and actually go quite well. And I still had things to work on.
Yeah, of course.
But
like any rookie,
I always had this belief at going through those training sessions, and when I got to actually playing a first grade game, I would be ready, and that all I had to do was take that opportunity, and then that was going to be fine. Yeah,
it's funny. Like I'm sure people listening might go, "What do you mean? Like you're not that much better than you?" Talking about guys like Mick Innes and James Graham. I think it's more as a rookie, you put them. You almost think that they're inhuman. Like, so it's not a matter of like, hey, I think I'm as good as Darren Lockyer or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, you grew up worshipping first graders.
It's almost a realization of they're just human.
Yeah,
they're not necessarily like, I am Darren Lockyer kind of thing. And so, mate, I just, and mine was a bit later. So mine was when I actually made my debut, my first run. I remember, finding my front and going, oh shit, like, I thought I was going to get absolutely jammed. And again, it's not to say that I'm as good as Brett Stewart that we debuted against, whatever. It's just to say, like, I'm good enough to be on the same field as these guys, that realization.
Well, you realize as well as you go through it, like the challenge of being a first grader is not necessarily like being able to have a great performance. Anyone can have a great performance. Even the kid who is only 20 years old, they're there for a reason because they have talent.
Yeah.
They can have a great performance. It's about the consistency.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you do it every week?
Yeah.
Can you back up when you feel like absolute crap and don't have any motivation?
Yeah.
Can you still turn up and play at 90% of the performance of your best game?
Yeah.
That's what the great players actually do. That's what Darren Lockyer does. That's what Brett Stewart did.
Yeah.
And they do it every week, regardless.
Like Cam Smith.
That's what I didn't do when I was younger.
Yeah.
I knew I had the ability. That's what I didn't understand about it either. I was like more I guess, thinking about my potential. I'm like, I'm better than this guy. But it's about how consistently can you actually do it.
And it's funny, like you've played 180 games now, 181. Like you really probably only start to learn that at like probably 50 plus games, really.
Exactly.
Before 50, you're just thinking, I'm talented. Like I should be a first grader. And it's really almost. It has a little bit to do with talent, but it has a lot to do with consistency.
Well, it's no surprise that with that mentality that I had, it took me 3 or 4 years to make for 50 games.
Yeah.
Like I had a great first season, but then like you start to go through certain trials and tribulations of the machine that is NRL. And you get dropped, and I had to change clubs multiple times, and you have different coaches and butt heads with different personalities and deal with different teammates, all these other things. That's when you realize like you got to be consistent. You got to be reliable. That's the only way that these blokes who are in these positions can actually trust you to put you in that jersey every week.
And so do you remember your debut and how that come about?
Yeah, I think there was a bunch of injuries or something with the Bulldogs at the time. It was maybe Origin week too. So I think T-Rex was injured for the year. Josh Jackson was called up to Origin. Then there was maybe, because I was with Adam Elliott at the time too, I think he got injured. He was always kind of going to debut before me, but he kept kind of getting injured. So it was, I had a good season in reserve grade before that. I probably wasn't even on the radar to play first grade that year. But I'd been scoring all these tries and playing well in reserve grade, so they gave me a crack. I remember it was classic Desi didn't tell me till like the day before. No, the day before they were flying up or something. I think I went through the whole training week. And I'm like, they're calling me up into the video sessions and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, I'm like, is it a chance? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he named a completely different team, which is like the way that Des operates as well.
What?
I'm at like number 23. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm not playing then. They just want me in the video room because that just in case. Right. But then I'm going through the drills and stuff and they're like, they're almost talking to me like, what are you doing? Get in the drill. You're expected to know you're playing, and no one had told me.
Yep.
And then it gets to, I think it was Friday afternoon or something, and he's like, yeah, you're going to be playing this week, mate.
No way.
Go home and tell my parents. And like, I was of the mindset at this time, all these injuries have happened. I'm the next guy in line.
Yeah.
I should be playing. Yeah, I've been playing well in reserve grade. I'm going like, I don't know if they think the same thing though. Yeah. And then he told me, and I wasn't really over the moon excited and stuff because I was already of the mindset of like, no, I deserve this.
To be here. Because you made the New South Wales Cup Team of the Year that year. And you won the Rookie of the Year that year for the club.
Yeah. So I was going well. And then, flew up to Gold Coast. My family came, played pretty well. I can remember, funnily enough, I think the team lost. So that team too, the team I debuted in was the heaviest team in NRL history at the time.
No way. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So big team.
Big boys. Bulldogs were known for having big boys at that time. So after the game, I played pretty well. The team had lost. Des was pretty disappointed and talking about things. And then he goes, oh, by the way, good debut, Laney. Good work, mate. And then walked off. And someone came up to me afterwards. I think it was Tim Brown. And he's like, what about Desi sucking you off after the game? And I'm like, is that unusual for him to compliment people? I don't know.
Not allowed to compliment anyone.
Finally, it was a funny thing that happened on my debut game. So,
okay, so you, so basically that year you played really well. You make New South Wales Cup Team of the Year. Did you play 14 games that year?
Something like that.
Yeah, so you're pretty good for your first year to play 14 games.
Yeah, scored a bunch of tries. Yeah. I wasn't playing huge minutes, but I had some games where I started once again in the next Origin period. Played some longer minutes. I was mostly used as like back end of the game. That was back when there was 10 interchanges, I think. So back rowers, they could actually interchange them back then.
Yeah, okay.
So they'd kind of bring me on at the back end of the game. This big thing that they could chuck on the edge and
Yeah.
kind of use us for some impact, and I'd score a few tries and stuff every now and then.
And so then you were, in 2016, you were swapped for Raymond Fatalamarina. What happened here? Like, you know, I guess a bit strange when you think about it from, you've got this young guy that's bloody making teams and rookie of the year, and then you swap your rookie of the year after. What happened there?
Yeah, I just don't think there was the vision of like me fitting into what Des had kind of crafted. I was a little bit different to what he was looking for. Yeah, and he had someone like Adzi coming up through the ranks too, who I think applied to his vision of what he wanted better. And then he'd bought Raymond already for the next year. I think he bought maybe one or two other blokes. He'd re-signed T-Rex and stuff, and I'm just like, oh, T-Rex is back. He's got Adzi coming through. He's playing now. He's signing Raymond next year. It was just like writing's on the wall for me almost. Like I don't want to be stuck playing reserve grade because I believe I'm a first grader still.
Yeah.
So we just made the move happen a bit earlier. So Raymond was playing reserve grade at Warriors. I was playing reserve grade Bulldogs. We just made the swap, and I was on, packed my bags in. It was like, I think my manager called me in like a Wednesday, and then I was flying to New Zealand on the Saturday.
Wow.
That was just with the idea of you can go to New Zealand. This is the deal that we got on the table for.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm like, how long do I have to decide? And he's like, I'm like, do I have a day? Can I have a day? He's like, yeah, right, we'll give you a day.
Oh, man.
And that was, so I go home, ask my family and my friends and stuff, and they were all just like really supportive. Like, look, this seems like the best move for your career. So I think I then went to Bulldogs training the next day. And I called my manager the night before, and I said, yeah, all right, let's make it happen. Bulldogs training the next day, and I was in like the reserve grade team, and some of the boys are like, surely you're looking to leave, Laney. Like you're too good to be here. Something like that. I don't know if they said something that flattering, but I was like, I'm going to New Zealand. And they thought I was joking.
No way. Far out.
Yeah, so I'm like, yeah, right. I'm like, no, I've actually lined up like it's going to be a swap.
Yeah.
And you'll see it. I'm actually flying to New Zealand in 2 days. And Raymond's coming around back here. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, I swear to God. I was like, go ask Jimmy Dimmick.
Yeah, wow.
And then so after that, Jimmy's just like, oh yeah, I can't say anything, but yeah.
Far out. Okay, so you rock up to New Zealand, and you only played one game. What happened there?
Yeah.
Like then you were off to Manly like quickly as well. What happened? Do you reckon?
I think that belief that I had in myself turned into entitlement.
Okay, yeah.
And then that turned into like bitterness when I wasn't getting what they said, they promised in like, you'll be playing first grade and this to get me across there, and then it didn't happen. I'm like bitter about it.
Yeah, and I guess the
thing
thing
into this spiral, man, where I was just like feeling sorry for myself. I was the victim, and then blaming, pointing fingers at everyone else, and I felt crap because my family and friends weren't there, and it was just like your typical sorry 21-year-old kid that felt like the world was against him. And I'm thankful that I did it because I learned so much from that period. It took me another year. Like I had to go to Manly, and then I think when I went to Manly, similar things started to happen for me.
Yeah, okay. And
then at that point, it's not about like pointing fingers anymore. It's about what's the common denominator here. It's me.
Yeah.
I had to look at myself in the mirror. And then, after the first year at Manly didn't work out for me, it's just like I got one more year of this, and if I'm playing reserve grade again, that's my career done.
Yeah.
So really had to look in the mirror and adjust my perspective on things, come out. And I went really well in the preseason, and come round one, I was in the team for Manly, and I think I played every game that year.
Yeah.
Scored all these tries again, and I was back to kind of my best.
Yeah.
It just took a bit of reflection and I guess a hard look in the mirror.
Yeah. It's funny because like I think some people may listen and go, well, hang on a sec, like you were promised certain things in contract talk and you have every right to be upset if those things don't come true.
Yeah.
But I think maturing as a young man, but also as a young footy player, is understanding that you can only control what you can control. And if you're not working as hard as you can, then you're contributing to the, like, if you're sitting there pointing fingers, doesn't help anyone, even if you were promised certain things.
No, of course. That's like in any walk of life.
Yeah.
Not thinking about things that you can't control. It's not going to get you anywhere in any profession. Yeah. Thinking about, this guy got a promotion instead of me, and I work harder than him.
Yeah.
Is that gonna help you?
No.
Perform? Is that going to help you get the next promotion that comes up, or whatever else? Is that going to help you meet your KPIs? No.
Yeah.
So like that's what happened with me. It was, and like footy's a beast. People, especially back then, that's 10 years, 11 years ago now. Like it was general practice for people to make false promises, like because you wanted to get the best squad that you can, the roster.
It's part of the game.
It was part of the game.
Yeah.
Every player would have a story like that, probably.
Absolutely.
And it's not about pointing fingers at someone. Like the people who were able to prosper and have a good career, not the ones that would point fingers at the false promise that wasn't delivered.
Yeah.
They're the ones that go, you know what, like they didn't deliver that promise. Fuck that. I'm going to make them deliver.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my foot forward and get to the point where they have to pick me.
Yeah.
So that's what I realized. It took me an extra year and a half or whatever, but eventually I was just like, I got to adopt that mentality. And that going through that experience allowed me to see that and allowed me to adopt that growth mentality rather than that fixed victim mentality.
Yeah.
And then that's the way that I've been straight ever since. And that's allowed me to have the career that I have.
And so you play that one game for the Warriors, but then obviously you arrive at Manly. At any point during this stage, did you think, because you're in this mindset of a 21-year-old or something around that age, and you're in this victim kind of cycle, did you at any stage go, you know what, stuff it, I'm done, like I hate footy? Or were you always like, even though I'm in this kind of victim cycle, I'm still going to give this a crack?
I was definitely like when you're playing week in, week out and your body's sore and then you're not getting rewarded for things, and I'm playing reserve grade and don't want to be there. It's like you're thinking to yourself, fuck this, I don't need this.
Yeah.
You're like,
absolutely. I know.
Footy sucks.
Yeah. I'm getting bashed around.
All these things.
I'm on peanuts. Yeah. I could go and get a normal career and build towards the rest of my life.
Yeah. But when you actually face the reality of, for me, it was like, I have 1 year contract left. And then I was like, the reality of the real world is I was going to be on half of the money that I was on playing footy, or less, I don't know.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, I was trying to study and figure out what else I wanted to do with my life outside of footy. Hadn't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
I still needed to complete that degree. I had no other qualifications, no other experience in any domain. Like, what else am I going to do? Go into laboring or something? And so, like, the reality kind of hit me of the situation. And it's like, you know what? Playing footy is a great career.
Yeah.
And I'm good at it. And like, there was always an element of, that was always what I wanted to do. Yeah. And it was, I hadn't lived up to my potential. I knew I had potential to do this, and I would never have been able to live with myself if I didn't actually put my best foot forward and try and give it the best crack that I could.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
And so, in Manly, even in the first year, you're still kind of struggling a little bit, but then the second year, it all kind of hits you and you go, okay, there's a reality. I could be without a contract and footy's done after this.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Like, there's a reason why players who are on their contract years go better. Like, it provides you with such motivation.
And clarity too.
And clarity. Well, like, it starts to challenge. I don't know if you've ever heard of the hierarchy of needs. Yeah. It's another psychological concept. Yeah. At the top, you got self-realization and being your best and all these things. And it goes down to like belonging in a group. Then you have like psychological safety. And then at the very basic need of what motivates humans is you need security and you need food and you need a home and clothes. So like that contract year, that's what's motivating you. It's like, it's actually security and income and everything like that. That's why players are actually so motivated to perform. That's what was happening to me. Yeah, okay. It's just like the need to actually provide my life with income and all these other things. Like, that was, you know what, I need to do this. Yeah.
And so you like the first year you struggle, but the second year you play easily the best footy of your career, and you genuinely were used as a weapon to score tries for Manly at that stage. Yeah. What do you remember mostly from that year? Is there any game or moments or fun memories from that year?
Yeah. I remember So I started the year off the bench playing front row. I scored a few tries there, and then we had some injuries and stuff. The team wasn't going well. Ended up being used in the back row, scoring more tries. I think it was like we played a game in Cronulla. We actually ended up winning. It was a good game for us that season, in a season that didn't have many highs. But I think I started on the edge maybe. I'd scored a try, and then I moved to the middle after that, scored another try. And so now I'm like lining up after the kickoff of the second try I just scored in the first half.
Yeah.
And the blokes on like Cronulla is a field that you go to where everyone's spraying you all the time. It's like Newcastle, it's the suburban grounds more so where like the Maniac fans kind of prosper and come in their own. So there's this bloke yelling at me from the grandstand, whatever, blah, blah. I think, yelling at me. And I'm just like going, see that, mate? 2 tries already. I'm going, already 2 tries.
Oh, that's great.
We ended up winning the game, luckily.
Thank
so
God.
That was good. Yeah, that was a fun moment. I think we played Melbourne the next week maybe, or a week later.
Yep.
And I thought I'd done my hamstring in the opening minutes. And I'm like telling the physio, I can't go. The hooker at the time then jumps out, like kind of makes a half break. We're in the attacking zone. Instinctually, I just go boom, take off. My hamstring's fine. He offloads to me. I score a try. I end up scoring another double like a week later. I scored 4 tries in like 2 weeks.
No way.
And it was just like suddenly I'm going, like I'm like one of the top scoring forwards in, like, in the comp in these last whatever. Like I'm actually turning into a good player again. How good's this? That's when it was like I was realizing like I'm properly able to push my case as like an actual genuine starting back row now.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And so that would have been year 2018, I think, or 19.
Oh, that was 18.
That was 18, yeah. And so you finished the year as literally the top try scorer.
For Manly, yeah.
That is insane.
I think I was equal with Turbo or something, but like towards the end, I scored a few doubles and I was getting, like picking some off here and there. And like every week I'm going like, I hope Turbo doesn't have a hat trick and an absolute blinder.
Yeah.
At that point, we couldn't make the 8 and stuff. I just wanted to get the top try scorer. The best thing for the team is like Turbo to be a gun, obviously. And I'm just going like, I hope I score it. He doesn't.
Oh, that's great.
Funny.
But that year you signed for Para. What was that because of they had some forwards in at Manly that was going to come back, or what was that about?
Yeah. I think I was getting more opportunity and stuff because someone like Curtis Sirenen was injured. I think they had Joel Thompson. There was other blokes that might have been in and out of the team, but the starting team was essentially them two, Jake, Marty, and Adden. And then they had other blokes, but I was going to be on the bench again. And so chatting to Parramatta, they had more of a use for me, I guess, as a starting back row is what they saw me as.
Yeah, okay.
And it was just like... They also gave me the money of a starting back rower, like what they saw. And for a bench front rower, Manly couldn't really fork out the same amount of cash. So it was beneficial to my career in multiple different ways. It just made sense at the time. At that year, Manly was second last and Para was last. So I was like, oh, it's not much of a difference.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I made the move the next year.
Yeah, so you roll into Para, and this is the bounce back year for Para, where you basically go on your run of like finishing. You're considered a top tier side pretty much for the next 4 years. 4
years, I think. Yeah. We built a good team over the next 4 years, slowly adding a piece here and there.
Yeah.
We're in. I think over that period, we had the longest reign in the top 8 of any team in NRL.
Yeah, wow.
In the NRL era.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know if Penrith's beaten it since then or whatever, but we were 4 years straight in the top 8.
Okay.
Because we won every round 1 as well, right? So if you lose round 1, you're not in the top 8.
Oh, as in you mean like, you stayed
every like consecutive longest consecutive streak of being in the top 8.
Whereas like
in the NRL era.
Like for example, Storm, they might have like even though they would have won round 1, but there might have been like 2 weeks where
Melbourne always win round 1.
Yeah, they always win. But there might have been like between round 1 and 5, they were
might have lost
10th.
2.
Yeah, like they were 10th or something.
It's always like the start of the year is a lot more volatile, right? But we would start the year strong every year. So we had the longest consecutive streak in the top 8 of any team in the era.
That's crazy.
Penrith may have beaten it since then. I don't know, but
not to confuse people thinking that you're saying finishing in the top 8.
No,
it's in the top 8 no matter
week by week basis. It was
That's it. Yeah, that's geez, what an interesting. That's so consistent. That's so consistent.
Yeah. Well, that's what you kind of strive for, and that's what we had over that 4-year period was a lot of consistency where we turned into a high performing team, and it was it was what Parramatta needed. They had a bad year the year before. They came last. We did a bit of work as a team, and they brought in some pieces. Myself, Junior, came back to the team. Dylan Brown developed. They had other pieces start to develop, and then I think the year later we brought in Reg.
Yep.
Year later, Ice came on board. Murata was developing the whole way through. Like he started to become better and better.
Yep.
Reed became better and better.
Yeah. Okay.
Oregon better and better. So yeah, Dylan obviously strength to strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
Built over the years.
And so the preseason rocked up. At any club, had you done an army camp at all at this stage, or you just kind of missed them, or you done a lot?
No, I've successfully avoided an army camp the whole career.
Way.
Yeah,
that is crazy. That is
unheard of in rugby league.
It really is unheard of,
especially for a 10-year career.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You would think someone tried to sneak in one, but
maybe Riles has got one up his sleeve for you.
I heard a rumor that it is a possibility, but I don't know.
I reckon you will.
I don't know.
Because first year coach, you want to kind of set the tone and be, oh no.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Either way, it's like
it is what it is.
I've been beaten down that much that you know what, you can't break me anymore. I've been broken before. Okay,
so you get to Para in the second year, in that first year, you guys come 5th, and then you beat the Broncos 58-0, their biggest ever loss, biggest ever final series win. Do you remember that match against the Broncos where you won 58-0?
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. That was because that was our first year at Combank, and the first game that we had was unbelievable. That was Easter Monday against the Tigers, and we beat them like 50-0.
I mean, I'll still remember the photo, I think, of Mitch Moses doing that.
He does it every time now.
Yeah, he's carrying on now, Mitchie. Nah. That's such an iconic photo. The first game, and he scores a try like that. It's incredible. Incredible.
We beat them. That was like, oh my God, this is the best atmosphere I've ever played at, because it was like just the structure of the stadium, kind of the ambience, whatever it is. The Broncos game was a step above that. Like, holy crap, this is, and on top of that, it's a finals game. And, like when you win those games by like 50 points, it just feels so easy. It's just, you're just like, how good's this? Like, it felt like we didn't even have to try.
Yeah.
And like, they're the games that you live for, because every other week you're struggling.
Like
you're struggling. It's like you have to be on every minute, and it's just like, oh my, it's torture if you're having to do it all these weeks consecutively the whole year.
Yeah.
It's just like such a relief mentally to get in those games where you're just like, man, everything's on and we're clicking and we're winning this easy. It doesn't even feel that hard.
And so what did it feel like for you going from a club that obviously finished, second last or whatever, to now, wow, we got a successful group here and we can really build, because you're relatively young at this stage. Are you starting to really like almost, I mean, it's not the start of your career, but it's like almost a new beginning for you to a degree?
Yeah. Well, the way that I would describe when I went to Para, I had just been jumping around teams for, it was in the space of like 2 calendar years. I'd been at 4 different teams.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to build like a home, something that I can actually stay at and build a connection to, rather than just jumping around from team to team. So that year for me just kind of solidified what I was trying to do, in terms of I'd performed really well. I was now part of a successful team. I think I won an award that year as well. So, everything was kind of working its way towards what I wanted.
Yep. And so the next year you sign a 3-year deal, and this would have been the best probably deal you've ever signed, I'm assuming.
I I think
As in at that stage.
At that stage, yeah.
And so you're sitting there. I'm assuming stoked. You're at a club that's going really well. You got a bloody good contract. Life is good.
Yeah.
How? What about yourself? Is that how you were kind of feeling at the time, or what was it for you?
Yeah. That's when I think the mindset that I had was like, all right, I've established myself as a starting back rower now. What's the next progression is rep footy. So I wanted to be a rep footy player, and I'm trying to struggle for that. But it would be like quite a battle for me mentally, because I'm trying to achieve that next level, that next step up. But it was something that like I had control over my own performance, but I didn't have control over other back rowers' performances. I somewhat could contribute to my team's success, but then couldn't control the other team's success, couldn't control the selectors and stuff like that. So, I had a bit of struggling mentally around that type of stuff. Would be a bit demotivating at times, even though I was in the best position of my career. The team was going really well. But yeah, there's some of the battles that you kind of have once you kind of get into that 50 to 100 games. You're kind of trying to figure out like, what's the next thing that I can work at? What can I do? That's when I probably started getting in my studies and stuff a lot more. That's when you realize football is more of just, it is a great career to have, but it is just a career at the end of the day, and you need to start working on other things and figuring out your life.
And it's so short too, like,
And so I started working on figuring out my life off the field as well, rather than just being like, because when I was trying so hard and my happiness was much more contingent on trying to make a rep team, I felt crap. I felt crap because I couldn't control that. That's when I started to realize, look, you know what, things that I can control, that's what I'm going to focus on.
And 2019, you had the scandal. What, I guess, what was that like going through that? Like, was that just like bizarre? Like, you obviously got fined for it and everything like that. What was that?
Yeah, like? That was bizarre. I mean, at the time, like I'm someone that I just laugh about things. So as bad as it looked, I know I'm not a bad person and like I'm not into that type of stuff, right? So I thought it was funny, and like I obviously had to go through shit, but I just laugh about the fact that I was such an idiot to take photos of myself and send it out and put myself in that sort of position, and I was just it was a learning experience for me, and I was happy to put my hand up and say, you know what, I'm an idiot. I'm happy to cop the punishment of whatever it is. I've put everyone in a compromising position in the club and in the NRL. So, I still look back at it and laugh.
Just go, what were you thinking?
It doesn't look like a student of psychology.
But mate, 2022, incredible year. You win the club's the Ken Thornton Medal as Parramatta's Player of the Year. You sign a 3-year deal, but also you make a grand final. What was that year like for you, mate?
That was kind of like, I guess, the 2020-21 season where I talked about I'm trying to develop this mentality of like how I'm dealing with success and trying to be an NRL player consistently. And I think that's when I'm getting into psychology and stuff. Everything that I'd learned and been working on over all these years, and aligning like a purpose and my values and all this type of stuff to playing footy. That's when it really actually played out, and I was able to fully get into the successful mentality of how to actually be that elite first grade player. And it all just clicked for me. On top of that, there was things outside of my control, like Dylan Brown had an outstanding year and he's my half. So if, as a back rower, if you don't have your half on the ball, it's very difficult for you to make an impact in the game. The team was clicking so well. We'd spent 4 years together at that point. So all these combinations that had been getting ironed out for so long were just flowing, and we just had such a complete team. Everything worked out really well. We made the GF, but end of the day, probably came up against the best team ever.
Unbelievable. What do you remember?
I look at that 22 Penrith team, and I'm like, I don't know if any of the other teams I've had are better than that.
Yeah, wow.
That's when they had Appy and Kickow, Crichton.
Burden was still there? Was Burden still there?
Burden was 21.
21, okay.
I think he left 22.
So, yeah.
Who else did they have in 22?
Because that's Fish, Leota, Yo, Edwards.
Everyone.
Kickow, Appy. That spine with Appy in it is insane when you think about it.
Appy in it. Their whole forward pack was internationals as well. They had Lenu on the bench.
Yeah, wow.
Mitch Kenny was on the bench for him.
Yeah.
Insane team.
So I guess, what do you remember from the grand final week? Do you still appreciate the experience, even though it was
Yeah, for sure. What I remember was it felt so long and arduous. Really, because you had all these different commitments. You had to go to fan days, and then the Dally M's was on that week, and we had training sessions, which is another fan day, and then had like interviews, heaps of interviews. I was having the best year of my career, and I ended up getting the Player of the Year that year for Para. So at that time, I was experiencing a lot more media attention and stuff for the first time in my career, really. So it was difficult. Difficult dealing with like just the volume of all of that, how it kind of wears you down gradually. And it was the most, there was more of it in the grand final week than ever before, for sure. So you can see why teams that have experienced that, they know like it's going to be a long week. There's going to be so many different commitments. Let's not think about expending any of your energy and all of that. Let's save it for game day.
Yeah.
And then it's also about like, if you've had the experience on game day, you know just how intense it is in a grand final. And it's about understanding, I guess, how to approach that game differently to how you have to approach it differently to how you do every other game.
Yeah.
So that was my experience of grand final week, really.
Do you remember anything from the game specifically? Like, obviously, I'm sure you remember when a buzzer went. Or
I remember when I mess up.
What happened?
As every human does. But, the first 20 minutes of that game was so intense. It was insane. It was like the quickest, most physical thing I'd ever been a part of. I'm just like, holy crap. Like, it almost shocks you because you haven't been through it before.
Yeah, you don't know what to expect.
That's what I mean when like you need to experience it almost to understand like what you're walking into.
Yeah.
It all went by pretty standard, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like a normal game. You think about where you mess up, where you could have done better, and end of the day, man, that's footy. It's another game, and whoever's better on the day,
win it.
Yeah.
And so the next year, you suffer a fractured jaw.
Yep.
I guess you dealt with injuries before, but this one it was quite substantial. And I guess getting that confidence back, I don't know whether you struggle with it. I know I probably would be a little bit rattled my first game back, just getting confident with the contact again. What was it like for you?
It happened in a trial game. So I think I missed the first 6 rounds or something. For me, I felt confident once I'd had the time off.
Yep.
And I felt like my jaw was recovered, and I trust medical specialists and stuff like that when they say you'll be fine. I had multiple plates in my jaw, so I was like, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It was more so I hadn't played footy since October. And then now everyone had been playing footy for the last 8 weeks. And I was like, felt off my game completely. And it was just like, I think I got into the pattern of trying to play catch up, like trying to force my game and force my way into the game in different ways when I just had such a successful season before, and I had all these visions and plans to like go even another step forward in my career this season. But yeah, footy doesn't happen that way. There's plenty of ups and downs, and I had to deal with that. And then that season it just ended up being a mess for me. I tore my hamstring. I was out for another 8 weeks or something with that, 4 weeks after I broke my jaw or something, and then came back from the torn hamstring, and then I snapped my elbow.
Yeah, just reading that. Wow. Just a disaster year.
Ended up being a disaster year. I could never really get into any flow of actually playing footy.
Yeah.
I felt just completely off of it the whole time, a step off. So that year was kind of just let's wipe the slate clean with this one. Let's move forward.
And so you've done a bit of moving now. You've played a bit in the middle and now on the edge. What do you reckon going forward? Do you reckon you'll stay on an edge? Do you reckon the middle? Like, what do you enjoy the most?
Just depends what the team needs.
Yeah.
Either way, man. I don't really footy's footy for me now. You know. I think I'm better as a back rower personally. I think my strengths are better utilised in that position. Running at small blokes. Trying to utilise my offload and things like that. But each coach has different plans in how they try and utilise their players, like I said before. So whatever the coach needs, I'm just like, whatever, man. Like, it's all good. If you want to use me off the bench, I'm fine doing that. I'll still come out and do my best. It's not about my pride. It's about putting the team first, and it's about doing my job.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. So, mate, ask all the boys this. Favourite rapper of all time?
Rapper? Eminem, I think.
Yeah, fuck. He's 9 out of 10 times.
9 out of 10?
Yeah, 9 out of 10. Everyone says Eminem.
Yeah, right.
Favourite movie of all time?
Avengers Endgame.
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah.
So
I'm a nerd, man.
Yeah, I am too. Trust me, I am too. It's fallen off a cliff, though, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is fallen off a cliff. Holy.
MCU, the plan's gone.
That was the last.
They had a master plan in place for like 20 years, and then that was the climax. They've been planning that for so long. It was just a master plan, and then after that, they're like, "How else are we going to do it?"
Yeah, milk more money.
I think the plans that they have moving forward from this point are going to be better.
Yep.
But it's like a recovery period now for them because they're recently not that good.
I just can't believe how well they nailed that plan to that point.
Unbelievable.
Because the problem is that let's say they ended on that. I honestly reckon that series would be comparable to almost Harry Potter in regards to quality
They did it over a longer period even.
Yeah. Whereas
Harry Potter was how long? 8 movies?
Eight or nine movies.
8 movies. MCU at that point was like 20 years, and it was probably they were doing a movie a year.
And they were always good.
Cracker.
But now, because they've released so much slop,
poisons the
world.
Interpretation.
Yeah, everyone remembers this shit. So, but that was a great ending, mate. Thank you so much for coming on, brother. I really do appreciate it, and can't wait to see you boys under some new management.
Do you know what makes me grumpy, mate?
Oh, whoops, yeah. What makes you grumpy, bro? What makes you grumpy? What turns you frown upside down?
What makes me grumpy nowadays? I'm not a very grumpy person, man.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a very grumpy person. Oh, nah. not getting a good night's sleep. That's what makes me grumpy.
Okay,
as it does with everyone, I think.
Yeah. I'm the kind of bloke that needs a good 7.5 hours.
Yeah. I'm pushing 9.
Yeah, really? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm known as the bloke in the team that loves sleeping in and can sleep all day.
Okay.
That's me.
Okay.
That's me.
What turns a frown upside down makes you happy?
A good night's sleep. Being with my mates.
Yeah.
Being with my mates.
Yeah.
Family.
Bloody oath.
I think you learn that as you get older as well. That's probably the most fulfilling thing you can do in your life. Yeah. That's what. And of course a good mug of grumpy coffee.
Absolutely.
I love my coffee.
Thanks, brother. Thank you so much.
No
We're going to send you some for sure.
Yeah.
Bro, thank you so much for coming on, bro. I really do appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.